So I'm in reading slump. If you saw my recent vlogs, I said more than once that 2021 wasn't the best reading year so far. It doesn't mean that I didn't like any book. I read a few books that I really loved, but most of them weren't the best. So I thought, let's look at my statistics and let's compare 2020 to 2021, and maybe I will realize why 2021 wasn't really a fun reading year. And maybe I will realize which books I actually love, so I can read books that I actually enjoy from. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jane and I'm in a reading slump. So I read most of my life. I can't remember when I started to read because since I remember myself, I read. But I had a really big reading slump for almost 2 years that I just didn't read because life. And I got back into reading in September 2020. It means that I read 4 months in 2020. And of course, until today, I read and I can't stop reading until this month. I'm filming this video in April 14. It means that already half of the month passed and I didn't read any book except audiobooks. And now the thing is that I have 3 books in my currently reading that I didn't finish, and it's so not typical for me because I never read multiple books at once. I just don't like to continue reading the same book. I prefer to start a book and finish it as quick as possible, but I actually have 3 books that I just can't continue reading, and not because they are not good, just because I'm already tired of reading. Now, I'm not pressuring myself to read. Like I said, I read a few audiobooks this month, and I actually really love audiobooks so far. I'm an audiobook newbie, but my physical reading just isn't the best. Again, I'm not going to pressure myself and to try read because I think the best way to overcome a reading slump is not to force yourself to read when you don't want to. So I'm going to take it easy. In May, I have a few readathons, and I think that April will be a good month to relax a little bit from reading, but I do want to look at statistics and to compare 2020 to 2021 and understand why I feel like 2020 was way better than 2021. So let's start with the most important thing: how many books I read. In 2020, in 4 months, I read 21 books, and in 2021, I read 46 books in 3.5 months. So I did read more books this year in less time, which is good. I do think that the reason is because I read more graphic novels in 2021, so this is the main reason that I was able to read so many books until now. The biggest difference between 2020 and 2021 is that in 2020 I didn't DNF any book, but in 2021 I already DNF'd 2 books, and also I started to read a book, and after 100 pages I decided not to keep reading it anymore, and I don't want to call it a DNF because I do want to read this book in the future. But 2 books I actually DNF'd and probably won't try reading them again, never. Now also in 2020 I read only physical books, and in 2021 I read 21 physical books, 12 ebooks and 3 audiobooks, but 2 books from the physical books were actually half physical and half audiobooks. Now, do I think that this matters on how much I enjoy what I read? Maybe a little bit. Like with an audiobook, of course it matters. I do really enjoy the experience of an audiobook, but I did read one audiobook that I think I would prefer to read it physically. But the more important thing, in my opinion, is the physical versus ebooks. I do love to read ebooks. It's really easy and comfortable, and you can like read it everywhere. But I do really enjoy reading physical books, so maybe this is a sign to read more from my physical TBR, which I want to do anyways. Just ebooks are usually much more cheaper or even free with a subscription. So that's the reason that I tried to read more ebooks, but I do have a big physical TBR, so maybe I will try focusing more on my physical TBR. Now, the next thing is that I read in 2 languages. I read in English and I read in Hebrew because I'm from Israel, and that's interesting because in 2020 I read 18 books in Hebrew, only 3 books in English, but in 2021 I read 42 books in English and only 4 books in Hebrew. I do really love to read in English. First of all, you have have more variety, which is like the most important thing. And sometimes things get lost in translation. So sometimes it's better to read like in the original language, if the original language is in English. But it feels to me more natural to read books in Hebrew because I read in Hebrew my whole life, and Hebrew is like my native language, so I understand much better in Hebrew. I do read really good in English and I understand everything, but when I'm thinking about it, maybe it's good for me to try to squeeze in more books in Hebrew, because I'm sure that I will continue reading most of my books in English because again the variety is much bigger. But maybe I will try every second or fourth book to read in Hebrew, because maybe like this I will be less tired to read, because especially in March I felt like I'm really tired of reading. So that's a point that maybe I need to try to read more books in Hebrew. It's interesting, I will try to do it more. Now, I did read the whole saga volumes in 24 hours in a reading vlog in January. So I read 9 volumes from a graphic novel, but I'm not going to include those 9 volumes in those statistics because I read 9 volumes and I feel that it will really affect the statistics and I want to see everything without those volumes. So in the statistic from now, I'm not going to include it. Next thing is young adult, middle grade. In 2020, I read 1 middle grade, 16 young adult, and 4 adult books. And in 2021, I read 2 middle grades, 14 young adult, and 11 adult. And I'm actually really happy with that number because, like you can see, in 2020, I didn't read a lot of adult books and I do want to get more into the adult genre. So I'm really happy about it because I read more adult books in 2021. I don't expect for myself to read more adult books from YA books because YA is the genre that I read the most and it's probably the genre that I'm most comfortable with. But it's nice to see that the number of young adult and adult books are really close to each other. Now, do I think that the reason that I'm not enjoying my reading in 2021 is because I read more adult books? Not, I don't think so. Also now I want to get more into adult books, but it's logical that maybe this is one of the reasons because I did read a lot of adult romance books also this year in 2021, but overall, except from contemporary romance books, I didn't read a lot of adult books. So I'm trying to get to a new genre, so it's logical that I won't enjoy every book that I start to read in this genre because I just started to search which books from this genre I actually love. Now the next thing is series versus standalones. In 2020, I read 14 standalones and 7 books from a series, and in 2021 I read 15 standalones and 11 books that are part of a series. So I did read more series in 2021, which is interesting because I don't feel like I read more series in 2021. I actually felt like I read too many standalones, but I have my binge reading series in my channel where I binge read the whole series at once. So now when I remember in it, it's logical because I did made already 3 episodes of this series. But if I'm not including those books in my binge reading episodes, I read only 5 books from a series. And I do want to read more because I do feel that sometimes standalones aren't really deep as much as series, because series you have like a lot of books, so the plot is much more complex usually, and I'm those kind prefer the plot over the characters. I do think that a good book needs to have both, but I do prefer more plot-driven story than character-driven story. Now the next thing is really interesting. So in 2020 I read 4 5-star reads, 3 4-star reads, 3 3-star reads, 5 2-star reads, and 4 1-star reads. And in 2021 I read only 1 5-star read, which was Lordin Keeps Breaking Up With Me, my favorite graphic novel. So yes, I didn't read a 5-star book that isn't a graphic novel this series, but 4-star reads I had 9, which is a lot. 3 stars I had 12, 2 stars I had 2, and 1 star I had 3. Overall, when I actually looking at the statistics, I had more 1 and 2 star reads in 2020 than in 2021, which is good, but it doesn't feel to me like it. Like before I looked at the numbers, I actually felt like I had much more 1 and 2 star reads this year than in 2020. Now, my biggest star rating in 2021 is 3 stars, which feels to me right because I feel like most of the books that I read this year were average. They weren't really bad, but they also weren't really good. Now, the 4 star is interesting because it seems like I had a lot of 4 stars this year. Now, the start of 2021 was actually really good. Most of those 4 star reads were in the beginning of 2021. Now, also 2 of them are 2 audiobooks that I read this month. I'm just starting to love audiobooks so much. But the main thing is that I don't have 5 star reads this year, except from graphic novels. And it's really important because 5 star books are like the books that you are most excited about and like the most amazing books. And I do feel like I had those books in 2020. I had a few books that I enjoyed so much that I just loved more than anything. But in 2021, I don't really feel this way. Like my favorite book this year so far is Read by Katrina Leno, which was amazing and I loved it so much. I gave it 4.5 stars. So like in these statistics, I lowered it to 4. But like except this book, I did read 4 star books that I really loved, but nothing was really memorable like a 5 star read. And I think that this is the biggest problem. I just want to read a 5 star book. I want to read something that I would enjoy so much that I will give it 5 stars. Now, the overall rating, which surprised me, is that the average rating of 2020 was 2.61 and the average rating of 2021, again except the 9 volumes of saga, is 3.1. So overall, by my star rating, I enjoyed more books in 2021. But do I feel like it? Not really. And I think that the main reason why is because I don't have 5 star books and I really want to have 5 star books. The next thing is genres, which I think is the most interesting thing. Now, in 2020, I read 2 graphic novels, but in 2021, I actually read 14 graphic novels. 14. But again, 9 of them were saga. So again, I'm not going to include them. So overall, I read 2 graphic novels in 2020 and 5 graphic novels in 2021. I read 1 dystopia in 2020 and 1 dystopia in 2021. And I need to read more dystopia because dystopia is one of my favorite genres. So if you have some good dystopia recommendations, please tell me in the comments because I want to read more dystopian books. Fantasy, I read 7 in 2020 and only 4 in 2021. And maybe this is another reason I don't feel like I'm enjoying books in 2021. Because fantasy is my favorite genre. Like most of the books that I read in my life are fantasy and I love this genre so much. Romance, on the other hand, I read 4 in 2020 and 7 in 2021. Now, I really love romance. Also contemporary, erotic, fantasy, no matter what, I love romance. But the thing is that most of the times I prefer that the romance will be one of the plots of the book, but not the main plot. Now, sometimes, of course, I want to read just a romance books, nothing more, just like some really easy and fun romance book. But again, most of the time I prefer that the romance won't be the main part of the story and just a part of a more complex plot, because I'm a plot-driven reader, so I do like for the plot to be more complex. And in romance story, it's usually just the plot between the 2 characters in the romance relationship, and in the end, almost always the characters end up together. So I want more complex plot. And I do feel in fantasy that there is more plot than in a romance book. Now, thrillers, mysteries, I read 3 in 2020 and 3 in 2021, which is good and interesting because in the past I wasn't the biggest thrillers/mystery reader, but I do get more into this genre. Contemporary, like general contemporary, I read 3 in 2020 and 2 in 2021. I read 1 sci-fi book in 2020 and I didn't read any sci-fi books in 2021. Now, I did read Scythe, which is a sci-fi book, but I categorized Scythe as a dystopia, so I didn't read a book that the main genre is sci-fi in 2021. And there is 2 genres that I didn't read in 2020. One of them is historical fiction that I read 1 in 2021, and 4 horror books, because this year I read horror for the first time ever, and I'm really loving this genre. If you don't know, I'm also hosting a 72 hours horror readathon in May, so I will link the announcement announcement video if you want to check it out. But I'm really happy from this because I read more books from different genres and I want to read more books from different genres, so that's good. But overall, I do think that I need to read more fantasy books because fantasy is my favorite genre, and maybe because I didn't read a lot of fantasy books, I didn't really enjoy my reading year so far. So yes, I do need to read more books in Hebrew. Again, I would continue reading most of my books in English, but I will try to squeeze in more Hebrew books and not read only one Hebrew books in every 10 books. Second thing, I need to read more fantasy. I need to read also more dystopia. I need to read more genres that I really love. Now, I do want to continue and to explore new genres, try new things that I usually don't read, but I need not to forget reading the genres that I actually really love. And the main thing, look for a 5-star book. Now, I'm a mood reader, and I think that this is the main reason that I didn't enjoy 2021 versus 2020, because I do try to stick to a TBR, especially for reading vlogs, but I don't think it really works for me well. So I think that I will try reading more based on my mood than based on the books that I need to read for the channel. And overall, I think that if I will read books that I'm actually in the mood for, it will be more fun to talk about them and like to do reading vlogs about them. So yes, I got a few conclusions from this video. I actually was surprised from a lot of things. Apparently my average star rating is higher in 2021, which is really weird for me. But yes, I need to read more fantasy and I need to read more books that I'm actually in the mood to read. Hopefully my reading slump will be over soon. I'm uploading 2 times a week on Sundays and Wednesdays, but until the next video you can check more videos by me. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!